Okay, now that we have some users created, let's talk about switching users. Now, there could be a few reasons to do this. So, working in my account, I have administrative rights, but I have to use that sudo command in order to get access to it. What I'm doing is I'm using that sudo to say, give me elevated permissions. Well, when I do that, I have to put in my password to authenticate that, yes, this really is me. I didn't walk away from my computer and have somebody else sitting down doing it and they're trying to, take over. Um, so I've got to put in my password, but sometimes I may not want to do that. I may want to run elevated permissions for extended periods of time. So to do that, I could switch user to the root account. So that's one way that I can do it. By the way, the root account is locked by default on all Ubuntu systems. In fact, let's do this. Let's do cat, again, get on the right screen, cat /etc/password, and I want to look at the root account, so I'm going to grep the word root. And here I'm going to see my root account. Now, if I look at the same thing, so sudo cat etc shadow, pipe that to grep root, you're going to see that in the shadow, instead of having a password, I have an asterisk there. And what that asterisk means is that this account is disabled. Now, this is a default setting on all Ubuntu systems. If I want to, I can enable the root account. And it's really easy. All I have to do is set a password for the root account. And I do that by, from an account with administrative permissions, the ability to run elevated commands. So sudo passwd, set the password. And because I preface that with sudo, which says do this elevated, it sets the password for the root account. If I did Maxwell, then it would set the password for the Maxwell account. We saw that earlier. If I just do passwd without it, it'll allow me to change my own password. Okay. So that would allow us to use that root account. Now we can also switch to that root account. By the way, best practice is don't. The root account in Linux is like the administrator account in Windows. Typically, all systems have them and they have all power. So that's an easy target for attackers, which is why Ubuntu just disables that account and leaves it disabled. Now, I may want to switch user to my root account for an extended period of time. Rather than using the sudo, I might want to switch user there for an extended period of time. Now, the way I'm going to do that is with the su, or the switch user command. So I can do sudo su switch user, and then I can either leave that blank or I can put a dash there and not put a username. Either way, it's going to change it to root. Now at this point I want to point out a couple of things about these two prompts. Notice right here, this prompt that I'm pointing at, David at Bassett311 demo. So the Bassett311 demo is the name of my virtual machine that I'm using. The first part is my username. So I'm logged in at this point is David on the Bassett311 demo machine. When I did the SU, or switch user, it switches me to the root account. So now I'm logged in as root at Bassett311 demo. Now, also notice on this one, I have the tilde $ prompt. Now, the tilde means I'm in my home directory. On this one, it has /home/David. That's because the root account is in the home David directory, not in its home directory. So it displays the full path. If I was in David and I was in any folder other than my home directory, it would give me the path that I was in. The $ here means I'm running as a standard user. The hash here means I'm running as the root user. So I have elevated permissions for every command. So if I do cat /etc shadow, you'll notice I don't have to do the sudo in front of it in order for that to work. Okay, to exit back out, to get back to my original account, I just type exit, and it exits me out of root and puts me back into David. Okay, so if I do that sudo su that puts me in as the root account, which is easy enough to do, and it means I don't actually have to activate that root account. But what if I want to switch to somebody else? Let's say Michael Maxwell wants to run something real quick and he wants to come sit down here and just do something. Well, I can su m Maxwell and it will switch to Maxwell's account. Now, obviously, I need Maxwell's password. So I'm going to type ABCD123$, put in my password, and there we go. I'm now running as Maxwell. Notice, by the way, that Maxwell, again, he's not in his home directory, he's in David's home directory. So I'm going to do cd to change directory /home/m Maxwell, and you're going to see that now, instead of showing the path, it shows the tilde, which means he's in his home directory. Now, once again, and the $sign means he doesn't have elevated permissions. Once again, Maxwell's done, so I'm going to exit, and that takes me back to me. Okay, now that's how I can switch user to somebody else if they need to do it temporarily or if I know their password. But frequently, I'm not going to know their password. So the scenario here where I would use this is, let's say I'm the system administrator for this system, and I need to do something as another user. So I need to verify that it works for them. I need to set a configuration. For whatever reason, I need to do something as that user, but I don't have that user's password. So what we would do is sudo switch user m Maxwell. And that takes me there without having to know their password. Now, if it had been a while since I've done the sudo thing, those sudo credentials wouldn't be cached, and I would need to put in my password to say that I have elevated permissions. But this gives me the option now to switch to another user and use their account for administrative purposes only. This is the only time you should ever do this. You're troubleshooting, you're fixing something like that. But it does give you the ability to switch to that other user without knowing their password if you have the root access, if you have full administrative rights on the system. Once again, to get out, it's just exit. Okay, there we go. That's how we can move around and switch users either to function as another user or to switch into the root user if we're going to be doing a bunch of commands that require elevated permissions rather than having to do sudo in front of every one of them.